Western Spring Television. Ours it is.
All right, thank you so much for staying with us. Right, it's a lovely afternoon here in the beautiful city of Oshogbo, the capital of Osun State. It's Western Spring Television and Rave 91.7 FM special. A special interview with Will Stevens, who is the Consul General of the United States Consulate in Lagos, Nigeria. Will Stevens joins us live here in the studios this afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us on this spring special on Western Spring Television and Rave 91.7 FM.
What a pleasure to be in studio with you and be back in Oshogbo.
Yes.
So happy.
Thank you very much. Good to have you again.
Thank you.
So, I mean, you've been here in Nigeria approximately for about 8 months now. How are you liking your stay so far? And this is your second time of coming to Oshogbo?
It is my second time in Oshogbo. So I was here just a few months ago to open a project that we're doing to restore part of the Oshogbo Sacred Grove.
Yes.
Which we talked about when I was here. But it's been an incredible 8 months. I have absolutely loved the time that I've spent here so far and really just seen so much happen in just a few short months. In the last 8 months, we have made visas valid for 5 years. So now people who get tourist visas to the United States get them for 5 years. We've cut the wait time for visa applicants in half. And that's been by people who want to do the Dropbox. They can actually drop their visas off if they've had a valid visa within the last 4 years. So we doubled that time so that now more and more people can drop off, which means there's fewer people waiting for appointments to actually come in. Huge work. And we've seen that Nigeria has become one of the top 10 sending countries for students to the United States for the whole world. So huge things that are happening. Plus, you have a Nigerian being nominated and winning a Grammy, and then being nominated for an Oscar award. So the cultural ties are growing, the peer-to-peer ties are growing, our economic ties are growing. We just went through a really interesting election. It's just a great time to be in this country. Well,
interesting. Just before I come to the elections, let me ask you on a personal front. So these past states, once you've been to different parts in Nigeria, tell me, what do you find fascinating about the people, about the culture, about the perhaps the food?
It is an incredibly diverse place. And I have been lucky enough to travel in the South-South, the Southwest, and the Southeast, and I've been up, of course, to Abuja several times. As the Consul General in Lagos, I cover the 17 southern states, so most of my time is going to be spent down here. I've been able to try a variety of different foods. If you're going to, I'm going to preempt you. My favorite food so far has been moi moi. Moi moi? Moi moi, I love.
That's interesting.
It's so good.
Have you tasted that jollof rice?
Of course, I've had the jollof rice. I had like fish stew. I've had efiro, which is a big favorite. Efiro. I had fisherman soup when I was out in Akwa Ibom. Yeah, so I've tried. I love to eat. It's in the show. I'm not quite big enough to say that, but I love eating, and so you always have to try the local food when you're out.
Well, interesting. Well, so let's talk.
So, any recommendations for what I should eat here in Oshogbo?
All right. So, there is a special delicacy here. I wouldn't know if you like that, but I think you should. I mean, so it's called a kuru and a ko.
Ekuru.
Yes.
What is it?
Okay, so it's made from beans.
Okay.
And it's like moi moi, but without the oil, without the pepper. You'll love it.
Sounds wonderful.
Ekuru and Eko.
I'll get it tonight.
I think you should try it.
I'll get it tonight. Ekuru and Eko. Got it.
All right. Well, let's talk some politics.
Yeah, of course.
So, what's the U.S. government's reaction to the recently concluded elections?
In an election, one thing that I think, well, first of all, we were among the first countries to congratulate President-elect Tinubu and the other political candidates on Nigeria's history. You have three separate, unprecedented, which I think demonstrates an evolution and a new era in Nigerian politics, where people are going to be competing on ideas and competing for a diverse set of voters. So obviously there were some challenges, and people I think were rightly disappointed in some of the administration of the elections. We had observation teams in and around Nigeria. And here, actually, not in Osun, but in Ogun and Oyo, we had observers observing the elections as they happened, both the presidential and the gubernatorial. And we're looking forward to people continuing to be peaceful. It's actually one of the most peaceful, as far as this elections in the history of Nigeria. And it's really commendable to see the candidates who feel like maybe they have some questions about how the elections were conducted taking those questions to the courts. In every democracy, the courts are the right way to do that, and not to the streets. And I think that's an incredible commentary on the maturity of the candidates here and the political parties, that they're willing to pursue those peaceful means of disputing what they see.
All right, so I mean, if we narrow down, the election was not without its controversy. So there were issues in some parts of the country, in Lagos, disturbing acts of violence, voter intimidation, suppression. It took place in Lagos, in Kano, in Rivers. What's the U.S. government's reaction to that? Yeah,
so particularly in the gubernatorial elections, it was quite upsetting to see the ethnically charged rhetoric and some of the ethnically based violence and voter suppression and intimidation, some of which I witnessed personally as an observer, out and about, and seeing people being unable to vote or being attacked because of how they looked or languages they did or did not speak. And that's there's no place for that in a democracy. There's no place for any sort of ethnic-based rhetoric, hate speech. It's just there's no space for that in a democracy, and it's quite upsetting. And we've been very clear about that. One good thing to say about the gubernatorial elections is there were some really improvements over the presidential elections in INEC administration. So more polling units opened on time, election materials were delivered on time, the BVAS system seemed to be working a little more smoothly. So it does seem that INEC was able to smooth out some of the kinks that we saw in the presidential election and the administration of the gubernatorial elections. All
right, so if we do holistic assessment of the election from your point of view, incidentally, you are also on the field, in election day you observe some of these things. What would you say were some of those elections shortcomings, and in which area do you think we could improve, in future elections?
Of course, so I think one of the things that really could be improved is the voter turnout. And we have something like 18% of the people voted in Lagos. We have similar problems in the United States where voters don't always come out to vote. And then when you aren't participating in democracy, how do you let your feelings and thoughts be known? And how do you shape the future of the country that you're in if you're not voting? So I think there's some questions about that. What can be done to improve voter turnout and voter participation? Obviously, after every election, there's things that can be improved. And as I mentioned, we have these same problems in the United States where there's problems, technical problems, glitches. So looking at steps and processes that INEC can put in place. And I'm sure that the international community and Nigerian politicians will be continuing to look at modifications to the processes and how we can help provide technical assistance.
Well, so, following that election, we've concluded elections now. The winners emerged. Those who lost, you said, they've taken the rightful place, going to the courts to challenge the outcome. What do you think is the future of democracy in Nigeria? Because a lot of rhetoric, some people are saying they do not recognize the president-elect. Some people have been protesting in some parts of the country still. But then after the election, what do you think is the future of democracy in this country?
This election actually reminds me a lot of a formative election in my own personal life in America, where President Bill Clinton, his first election, he only received 37% of the vote in the United States. So nearly 2/3 of Americans voted against him. Similar to President-elect Tinubu, where he also faced a third-party candidate that took a lot of votes away from what typically in the U.S. is just the two parties, which means that you have to build bridges across the party lines. You have to work together. You have to seek compromise. You have to have a robust conversation about different policies, which is good for democracy. It forces compromise. It forces representation. Nigeria has some incredible ways to ensure that your rich diversity is represented in government and governance. And so we're looking forward to partnering with him and his team and inclusive government that seeks to bring out the best in Nigeria. And I think we'll see that. I think, as I mentioned, it was an incredible election for, I believe, the future of Nigeria, where you have this serious contest of ideas and a contest of different parties looking at different things. And all three of them did very well, unprecedented. And so it's easy to look and say, oh, wow, there were these problems. But I tend to be very optimistic, and I think, well, that's a sign of a robust democracy. There was this contest of ideas, there was a winner, and now people are going to have to look to see how can we work together to solve the problems that face all of Nigeria and the world. And look, let me be very clear: the problems that face the world, things like climate change, HIV/AIDS, food scarcity, food prices, inflation. These are global problems, and we all need to work together to work on them.
But are you worried by some of the rhetorics coming from some of our politicians in the build up to the election, during the election, and even after the election? Are you worried about some of the comments by some of these politicians?
So clearly, and we made our thoughts very clear on this, the rhetoric and the intimidation, voter suppression, violence, ethnic-based rhetoric, there's no place for that in democracy. And it's something that we're concerned about, and we've made our concerns very known. Fortunately, so far, that has remained peaceful, and I think people have shown that they're committed to this democracy, and they're taking things to the courts, which is the right and proper way to do so.
All right, so let's come back to Osun State now. Leave the national scene. So this is your second time here in this state. Tell me what brings you on your delegation to Osun this time around.
Sure.
You said you came for the Osun Grove the last time. So why are you in Osun this time now?
So I'm here together with a team from the U.S. CDC, Center for Disease Control.
Oh, I see.
And our global coordinator for HIV/AIDS support. So the U.S. government has made a massive investment in Nigeria and all around the world to combat HIV/AIDS. And we have launched what's called a surge in several states where we're putting in more resources. And Osun is actually one of the last states to start the surge. So we're kicking off the surge this week. And the idea is to go that last mile to get people on treatment. So in the United Nations, there's a goal to have 95% of people who are HIV positive know their status.
Okay.
Right? Know that they're positive.
95%.
95%. So if you're HIV positive, you know whether you have it or not. And then 95% of them to be on treatment. And it's something that's very, very important. If you have HIV/AIDS, it's not a death sentence anymore. You can get on treatment. You can, in fact, that treatment makes you the third 95. So they're called the 95, 95, 95 goals.
Okay.
The third 95 means you're virally suppressed, which means you can have sex with your partner and not transmit HIV/AIDS. Virally suppressed means you are not giving the virus to other people if you're on these drugs. So part of our program is to provide testing and treatment and drugs with the Nigerian government to people, over 1.7 million Nigerians who are living with HIV/AIDS. And we're doing a surge here so that we can get those numbers up so people know their status. And when I say the last mile, it's really about going to the most vulnerable people. Teens, children, sex workers, women in remote areas, so that they have a chance to get access to these life-saving medicines and protect everyone around them, right? As I mentioned, if you get tested, you know your status, you then can get on these life-saving drugs. And then, not only that, but you're protecting everyone around you because you can't transmit the disease. And you're living a healthy life, and you're able to live everything normally.
So, I mean, it's connected from you knowing your status to you getting treatment, then you living your normal life.
So I went to a place today where they literally do it all in one place. You get the treatment. If you test positive, they hand you the drugs right there. And then they have you come back because they do a test to say, oh, virally suppressed now, it's safe for you to participate in sex without protection with your partner because you're not going to transmit the disease. And so it is, those 95, 95, 95 goals are something it's a UN goal. Nigeria is doing very, very well across the board. Osun State and a few others are the last ones to get the surge, partly because the population of people living with HIV/AIDS is relatively small here. So we want to get there and do everything we can, and I'm excited. I mean, I met today with the Commissioner for Health, the Director General, and a few others, and it looks like they've got a great plan in place, so I'm proud to see it.
All right, so I mean, who are you working with? You said you've met with some officials of government. But are you working only with government, or are you working with other people from the non-governmental?
So of course. So the program through Center for Disease Control, US CDC, administers the program. They give grants to local organizations. So this is one of the cool things about US assistance. When we give our assistance, it's not Americans coming in and doing all the work. We work with local organizations, and that means we're building local capacity. So you give a grant to a Nigerian organization to work in a few states. They hire civil society partners to work, and then they work together. And then if the U.S. ever leaves the program, you still have this wonderful capacity to do the work here together. So civil society, government, with a little bit of assistance from the United States, makes this beautiful package.
All right. Okay, so the U.S. mission organizes programs that bring American cultural arts and music leaders to Nigeria to meet, to exchange ideas, to collaborate with Nigerian cultural leaders. So what's the role of cultural diplomacy in strengthening U.S.-Nigeria relations?
Yes, of course. So this is, I think, one of the most powerful parts of our relationship is that foundation of people-to-people relationships.
Okay.
Right. The Nigerian diaspora is the most successful diaspora in the United States when it comes to academic and income levels. There's some statistic that if you're seeing a black doctor in America, there's a 1 in 4 chance that they're Nigerian American, which is really cool. But those cultural ties, those connections that art, music, film, TV, when you turn on Netflix, you're seeing Shantytown in the United States. You're seeing Gangs of Lagos, which are coming out soon. You're going to be able to watch these great movies and allow Nigerians to tell their story to the world and to the United States. And American companies are investing in that. Netflix has spent something like $60 million on developing content from Nigeria.
Wow.
And you have organizations that are bringing in Nigerian music. I mentioned Thames won a Grammy this year, was nominated for an Oscar. Burna Boy, of course, WizKid. They're all, they played at the NBA All-Star game. I don't know if you've tracked that, but Thames and Burna Boy at the All-Star game, like that was the music entertainment for the US NBA All-Star game, was Afrobeats, Nigerian musicians. So these ties, they make us grow closer together. And I think they then facilitate the things like trade, education. I hear one of my colleagues in the studio right here might be going to the United States to study. The idea that you can come back, and when you study, you come back to Nigeria with incredible connections. You have connections, professional connections, right? So you might want to trade or collaborate with people in the United States. You have research connections where you've maybe done some research in the U.S. with your academic partners, and then you come back here and you want to continue to collaborate. You have friends who you say, Nigeria is really great. You ought to come visit, or maybe we can invest together. Those relationships build and build and build, and I think that's what makes our partnership so strong.
All right. So let's talk about tech.
Yeah.
All right. And that's the future of the world, really. And everyone seems to be moving towards STEM and tech nowadays. So in what ways is the U.S. government supporting Nigeria? And Nigeria's building in tech scene, and what are the hopes that you have for the future of tech in strengthening U.S.-Nigeria bilateral economic relations?
I'm incredibly bullish on the tech sector. Bullish. Yeah, I think things are going to grow rapidly. They already are. If you look at Nigeria's GDP, tech represents something like 17 or 18% of GDP. Oil and gas is less than 8%. And as you look at the tech sector, almost 80% of Nigeria's startups are connected to the U.S. Either they've gotten funding from the United States, or they're incorporated in the United States, and they're directly related to the United States, or their founders studied in the United States, as I mentioned. And you see major U.S. companies making big investments, from Microsoft opening their Africa Development Center in Lagos, to Google bringing in a massive undersea cable to bring broadband to the African continent through Nigeria, to Equinix, which is a huge data warehousing company, buying Nigeria's main one. These connections are growing and growing and growing, and I expect it to continue to do so because there's a massive talent pool of tech experts here in Nigeria, people who know what they're doing, and that talent is globally in demand, and the U.S. is the leading country in the world for the tech sector. So if you want to talk about technology, you should be looking to the United States, and Nigeria's tech sector already is, and I think it's just going to keep growing. So what are we doing? Yeah. You asked, what are we doing? Because I can't take credit for all of that. but we're trying to build that ecosystem and expand it so that women get access. So we have a program called Tech Women, where we send women in the tech sector to the U.S. on exchange to meet with other women in the tech sector. We have a program called the Academy of Women Entrepreneurs, which is about to launch their application, where we do between 150 and 200 women go through a graduate school program remotely from here and get trained on starting their small and medium enterprises, many of which end up being in the tech sector, and then they connect. We are supporting a lot of the American accelerators. So these are companies like Techstars and Y Combinator and others who help tech startups build. So these are American companies, and we help bring them here. And then we bring in a little bit of funding. We try to bring in additional capital so that they can fund these great ideas.
All right. So, just before I ask you how people can apply for some of that, benefit from some of these, I'd like to ask you, have you been to Yaba in Lagos? It's regarded as Nigeria's tech hub.
I definitely have.
Maybe our own emerging Silicon Valley. Have you been there before?
I have. I definitely have.
What do you make of,
I think
the young chops with tech in that place?
It feels like Silicon Valley with a few less Starbucks.
Oh.
but just to see all that amazing talent, right? And the great thing about what they're doing is they're solving what problems that seem intractable to us. How do you make people in the African continent, who 70% of whom are unbanked, become banked? So, right? How do you solve problems like the fact that when I go and try to buy my groceries using my bank card, it doesn't work at the POS? These are problems that we all face every day. And they're problems that the reason Americans are investing in them is because they're problems that are portable outside of Nigeria, outside of Lagos, to the rest of Nigeria, the rest of the continent, India, South America, the United States. They're finding solutions that are globally helpful. And it's helping bring African solutions to global problems.
Well, interesting. So, you talked about, a program the other time for women or for girls, tech for girls. I also talked about an academy for...
So the Academy of Women Entrepreneurs.
Okay, so as these open to the public and Nigerians benefit?
We're just about to announce the application process for the Academy of Women Entrepreneurs, AWE, and that's basically eligible for women ages 25 to 35 who are anywhere from ideation to already running an SME. And it's a 9-month program. They get training in everything from finances to marketing to how to pitch to investors. And there's also a cohort component of it where they work together, right? And we become stronger when we work together and they learn from one another. And we focus in on women because we believe that when women are participating fully in the economy, women are stronger, families are stronger, and societies are stronger. So we really have a focus on that particular component. And I'll make sure that you get the advertisement and the press release when we put it out. I'm not too worried because we get a lot of Nigerians who apply every year. It's wonderful. It's a great program. In fact, the last time I was here, I met with a few alumni of the program. It's wonderful.
All right. Okay, so it's the month of March, just some few days to the end of March.
Yeah.
But March is Women's History Month. And so in many countries, including our own country here in Nigeria, women constitute nearly half of the population. And,
I hope so, yeah.
Yes, I've seen that you also prioritize, you give attention to women issues here, for some of your programs. But as much as they are more, constitute half of the population, they are far from enjoying equal rights and opportunities. So how does the U.S. government support women's inclusive participation in the Nigerian society?
Yeah, so a lot of the focus is on the economic sector, right? How can we get women more involved in the economy? Many of our programs are about supporting women. I launched just last week the 100 Women in Finance, which is a U.S. organization, came to Lagos and launched their Nigeria chapter. And there's some powerful Nigerian women who are CEOs in the banking sector. Wow. It's amazing. And even in the tech sector, the managing director of Google, managing director of Microsoft, Nigerian women for West Africa. Wow. The head of Amazon here, woman. The head of Netflix, woman. They're powerful women, and they're incredible role models, I think, for young women. So we do everything we can to highlight that and then provide tools as best we can to make sure that people have a chance to participate. And I have been so impressed by the Nigerian female leaders that I've met and their entrepreneur spirit and their willingness to solve tough problems. It's really inspiring.
All right, so you've run a number of programs, but you talked earlier on about the fact that a lot of Nigerians want to go to the United States to study. Yeah. So let's talk about that. Sure. How is the U.S. mission? How does the U.S. mission help Nigerian students who want to study in the U.S.? How can international students get scholarships to study in the United States?
Yeah. So we have a program called Education USA, which does outreach on the application process. How do you apply? How do you apply not just to get into the university, but how do you apply then for scholarships? And there's scholarships that are offered by universities. There's scholarships that are offered by private institutions. And this mentoring program happens at our American corners and spaces around the country, as well as at our American centers in Lagos and Abuja. Come in, it's free of charge. Get access to some databases, get access to college fairs, shows, recruiters from the United States, some of which are virtual. We do a college fair every year, twice a year here in Nigeria where universities come to do recruiting. And because Nigeria is one of the top 10 sending countries in the world, there's a particular focus on trying to attract more students. And we just think this is so beneficial to our relationship, because everyone from your governor here in Ocean State to members of the president-elect, they're alumni of U.S. universities. And they come back and they bring that talent. It makes them attractive to U.S. companies, makes them attractive to U.S. investment, and it makes, I think it makes the economy grow. Yeah.
Well, good. So, I mean, let's talk about some of the other programs that you're, that Nigerians aside studying. So you've talked about a tech, for girls. Yeah. There are other programs that some people talk about and they like to get access to. Of course. So there's the IVLP, there's the Fulbright Scholars. Right. Some of these other programs. Are you talking to us about it and how Nigerians can benefit? Sure. So there are an array of programs that go from Education USA, which is really targeted at people who want to go study in the U.S., undergraduate, graduate, to the program. One of the keynote programs, which is the Mandela Washington Fellowship. Every year sends 75 Nigerians. I'm going to meet with one who's going this summer, right here from Shogbo. She runs a company that makes kilichi, young, very impressive 25-year-old. Have you tasted kilichi? Love kilichi. It's so good, yeah. And is it hot? It's hot. You got to have a little bit of water ready. But that program gives you 6 weeks intensive training on there's several kind of institutes. There's technology, there's business, there's media, governance, and it's focused on young African leaders, right? How do you develop, and they build a cohort across the continent. And then we have programs like the Fulbright program, where you can go and get a PhD and do postdoctoral research in the United States. And actually, American researchers come here and get based in U.S. or Nigerian institutions and participate. We also have a variety of kind of focused exchanges where we say, okay, we're going to do something on tech, or we're going to do, we have a creatives small group, international visitors program coming up, where people from the creative sector are going to be going to Los Angeles to meet with people and talk about that. And we do the same thing in trade. So I'm leading a delegation of people interested in investing in the United States. From here in Nigeria? Yeah, from Nigeria to the U.S. in early May through our Foreign Commercial Service. And we send Nigerians to U.S. trade shows all the time to think about setting up those export-import relationships, right? Maybe you want to bring in American, I don't know, fishing nets or shrimp boats or agripreneurs and send them to the U.S. on those exchanges. Just trying to make sure that people have access to the world's largest economy, the world's top education system, and the world's most innovative country. And so all of these programs, are they open to the public? Absolutely. Are there ones that are restricted? How can Nigerians, so people listening to us definitely follow us. Okay. US in Nigeria on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and you'll get access to all these programs. You can see what they are and check out kind of, because they have different application processes for each one. Yeah. But if you want to study, you just need to apply. Okay. Yeah. And then, I mean, the education you would say can also be a good guide. Yeah, and you can go through, you can just get remote, if you're not based in a place where we have American Corner, you can just get remote consultations. Yep. All right. So all of this other information also can be accessed. I think you have an American Spaces here. We do here. I don't know the address of it. That's at the Uni Osun State Hospital, if I'm not mistaken. That's right. So go on by there. They'll give you access and flyers and brochures about all the information. All right. Well, so just before we go, I should take you back to Osun again. This is the second time here. Yeah. I hope you come back again. I hope so too. Okay. But what do you find most interesting about Osun, about Osogbo? Well, it is the heart of Yoruba culture, is it not? Yes, it is. So I think that's a valuable thing to see and appreciate. There's an incredible art scene here. Several really well-known Nigerian artists who are from Osogbo. Yes. And so I love art, so I love to participate in that. And I think there's the rich dynamics of the agricultural sector combined with the proximity to Lagos and it's a great place to be, and the food's going to be really good tonight. You got me excited. Yeah. Okay. And I should ask if you wear the Nigerian attire. Do you have any Nigerian attire? I do have a few senator suits that I wear. Oh. Yeah. So we have in the office. It's Friday is local attire day. Oh, interesting. Yeah. You have to get. I like pictures. To see you in that. Yeah. Next time. Oh, all right. Yeah. Do you wear caps too? Sometimes, yeah. And do you? I actually kind of prefer the Ija, like cowboy hat. Ah. Yeah, the Good Luck Jonathan look is my favorite. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Because I can never remember which way to wear the hat. Either way will go.
Either way is good. I
Yes.
thought that you were sending a signal if you wear it wrong.
Yes, really. So there's a part that says you're a bachelor. There's a part that talks about you being a married person.
See, I'd be absolutely terrified to be like, I'm a bachelor, ladies, when in fact I'm married.
Okay.
So I don't want to swear it on the wrong side.
Have you tried the Agbada before?
Yeah.
The flowing?
Not public yet, though.
I think you should try it out in public. Well, thank you so much for
Thank
coming.
you.
It's been a pleasure having you again in our studios, and we look forward to hosting you again.
Thank you so much.
When you come
and
to
thanks for
Osun State.
listening, everybody.
Okay.
All right.
So it's been a very interesting time with Will Stevens. He's the Consul General of the United States Consulate in Lagos, Nigeria. It's a Western Spring and Rave 91.7 FM special. And that's the show today. Femi Olanikweko is my name. Thank you so much for listening and watching. Bye-bye.